So today, from now till about 3 o'clock-ish, we're going to look at the ITIL 4 Foundation. Obviously, it's not a full foundation course. It's just an explanation of what the ITIL 4 Foundation course is about. To give you an indication whether it's something that you may decide to take in the future as part of your career, or if you're already ITIL version 3 qualified, do you need to move to ITIL 4? So it's just really to give an overview of ITIL 4, what the course covers, what the ITIL 4 scheme is now. So let's proceed. So if everybody could keep the mics on mute, that prevents any background noise. If for some reason, as I said before, if you disconnect, if the technology fails, then just log back in. And if you've missed a minute or two, then you'll be able to pick it up from the recording. It is being recorded, and hopefully at the back end of the session, we'll have probably about 10 minutes for Q&A. And I know one of my colleagues, Bob Amy, is on the call, so if I can't answer a question, Bob should be able to.
I'm here, Steve. I hope I will.
Yep. Cheers, Bob. Yeah, and if neither of us can answer the question, we will go away and find out the answer for you. So what I plan to do is, if I can collect any questions in chat, so if you can go onto chat and log any questions. If we don't manage to get through all the questions in the hour, then what we'll do is we'll do a frequently asked questions. We'll document all the answers for everybody. Okay, and make that available to all participants. Okay, so yeah, a little bit of an introduction to Purple Griffon. We've been in the training market for about 18 years now. We are UK based. We offer approximately 300 courses. At the moment, very few classroom courses, if any at all. Most of our delivery is being done virtually or self-paced online. And ITIL Foundation is available self-paced online, 30 days or 60 days access, or a virtual session. And we've, I think, a session booked every month. Hopefully by January we can get back to some sort of classroom delivery. Fingers crossed, but we'll wait to see how that pans out. And in terms of our coverage, we can deliver training anywhere in the world. But Antarctica may be a stretch, but apart from that, we'll have a good go at delivering training wherever you want us to go. A little bit about me. I'm a trainer consultant. I'm one of the founders of Purple Griffon. Worked in IT for over 40 years now, and worked with ITIL for as long as ITIL's been about. So I was qualified at ITIL version 1, version 2, version 3, now ITIL 4. I also cover training for things like DevOps, ITAM, SIAM, and more recently, artificial intelligence. So a lot of the theory around artificial intelligence, when it comes down to algorithms and the complex mathematics, that's where I step to one side and make way for colleagues. Okay, so ITIL 4, the purpose of the seminar was really to give people who didn't understand what ITIL was about a brief introduction to the foundation level course. Also an explanation of why people should move on from ITIL version 3 to ITIL 4, looking at what's changed, what's new, what's the same, and there is a lot which is the same, which we'll look at, and obviously opportunity for Q&A. Okay, so why did Axelos in November 2017 announce ITIL 4? The official reply from Axelos is that they need to provide more updated guidance to manage the different challenges, newer technology, different approaches, different ways of working. And the ITIL version 3 was capable of that. It just, you had to adopt and adapt it. So ITIL 4 is more you can take it as it's documented. It's more relevant. It's less focused towards internal IT service delivery. It's more focused towards agile, DevOps, lean working, and looking at a lot of the technologies and methodologies and approaches that support that. It's designed to be more flexible. So for organizations that are operating in an agile rather than a waterfall way, or they're working in a bimodal, ITIL is still applicable. Service management is still necessary. So that was the official sort of guidance around ITIL for why ITIL 4 had been delivered. It was nothing to do with the fact that Verism had just been released. And they saw that as a little bit of a competitor. So, and also ITIL 4 is so named. It's not version 4, it's ITIL 4, and it's aligned to the fourth industrial revolution, which we're in the middle of at the moment. In reality, if you look at ITIL version 3, it had become a little bit out of date. If you look at the documentation, a lot of it was stuck in the early the early part of the century. A lot of the documentation had been around since version 1, version 2, and it was really time for a refresh. The V3 had gaps and inconsistencies in the material, although the material's very good as a starter. It just really wasn't relevant to modern ways of working. Okay, there was also, in some people's opinion, too much focus on the service life cycle in terms of strategy, design, transition, operation, and also too much focus on process as opposed to delivering value to the customer. Although we did have a concept of value, it was sort of lost once we moved away from the ITIL version 3 foundation. So in essence, it did need updating. And I think maybe ITIL 4 might be around for another 10 years. We might see ITIL 5, who knows. I doubt whether I'll be teaching it though. Hopefully I will have retired by then. Okay, so the qualification scheme. At the bottom, we look at the ITIL Foundation, the ITIL 4 Foundation, and then there's a series of intermediate level courses above the foundation. We'll look at these a little bit more detail towards the end of the presentation, but basically there are 3 specialist courses, 1 strategist course, which is in both arms in the managing professional stream and also in the strategic leaders stream. And there's also the ITIL leader, which is the digital and IT strategy course. So this gives us 2 streams, the managing professional stream and the strategic leader scheme. The managing professional is the equivalent to the ITIL expert, as we had with version 3. And there is a managing professional transition module for anyone who's got to ITIL expert level in version 3 to transition it across to a managing professional. Once you've achieved managing professional, if you then want to gain strategic leader, you would just have to take the digital and IT strategy module because that direct plan and improve module is in both streams. ITIL master, maybe more about that later. Unfortunately, there's no foundation bridge exam as there was between version 2 and version 3. You have to take the foundation exam. We do offer a sort of cut down course in terms of classroom and virtual. So instead of 3 days for someone who's new to ITIL, new to service management, for someone who already holds V3 foundation, there's a foundation course, which is 2 days rather than 3, but it's still the same exam at the end. And touching on the exam for ITIL foundation, it's for anyone who's never taken one before, it's a 1 hour closed book, multiple choice. So is the answer A, B, C, or D? You've got 40 questions to answer in 60 minutes. If your first language is not English, then there's a 15-minute additional allowance if you qualify for it. Pass mark 65%, 26 out of 40. And the exam is run and administered by PeopleCert. So there's only one examining institute now that works with Axelos. And the exam can either be done paper-based, if we have a classroom course, if we ever return to those days, where you sit the exam at the end of the course, or you can do the exam online via a remote proctor. So you would need to take it on a device which has a webcam. Okay. In both cases, photo ID absolutely necessary. Whether you flash your passport or your driving license or identity card in front of the screen to prove you are who you are. Okay. Two words of warning: if you haven't done the ITIL exam before, you haven't done remote proctored exams. One is make sure you're aware of the rules regarding the exam, in terms of being it on your own in a room, making sure that you don't have anything on the wall which could be of use, because you will be asked to show your surroundings via the webcam to the proctor, and clear desk policy. And also in terms of the technology you're using, we've come unstuck a couple of times with some of our customers where they've tried to use a company laptop which has been locked down and hasn't allowed the exam shield to be loaded onto the platform, and they've had to cancel the exam and rebook the exam, which is a bit frustrating. So if you are planning on taking an exam, it's worthwhile checking with the company that the device, if you're working for a company, that the device you're using is suitable. Okay, so that's probably all we need to add in this stage. Okay, questions are as simple as this. So service request can be defined as A, unplanned interruption to a service, or B, the cause of one or more incidents. C, is it an addition, modification, or removal of something that affects services? Or is it D, a request from an authorized stakeholder that initiates a service action? So hopefully you've discounted A as an event, you've discounted B as a root cause, you've discounted C as a change. So the answer must be D. It's a service request. Let's just check whether that's right. Yeah, it's the correct answer. So hopefully everybody would have passed that sample. Okay, so what's covered at foundation level? Okay, syllabus says we need to cover some key concepts. And those key concepts are things like, what's the definition of a service? What is utility and warranty of a service? So utility is what the customer gets, warranty is how it's delivered. Can you recall the definition of a customer, a user, a sponsor, who are all service consumers? But what's the difference between them? So do you understand the jargon? Do you understand the terminology that's used within ITIL? And these questions, about half of the 40, are what we call Bloom's Level 1. And it's basically that you can actually recall the knowledge, you can remember what a service is, what's the definition of a service, definition of a user. So fairly simple stuff, it's not rocket science. And then we've got the other half of the questions, which are level 2. And this is whether you can actually describe, rather than recall, describe the key concepts. And we move into things like cost, value, what's the concept of an organization? And an individual could be an organization. It doesn't have to be 100 people in an office. can you describe the concept of something like an outcome or an output, or define the difference between an outcome and an output? Also things like risk and utility and warranty. Again, can we actually describe what utility and warranty is? These questions are at Bloom's level 2, where we can understand the concept, not just recall it, we actually understand what it means. We can make sense really of the definition, the description of that. And this is the limit in terms of the concepts, in terms of recall and understanding that would be required at foundation level. Okay. Also within the syllabus, we've got guiding principles, and for anyone who's done ITIL version 3 practitioner, guiding principles should be well, fairly obvious, and because they are covered quite heavily in the ITIL V3 practitioner course. But the guiding principles for ITIL 4 are slightly slimmed down. What we've got is 7 guiding principles. These guiding principles are applicable to basically everything we do within service management. Some may be more applicable than others at any particular point in time, or carrying out an activity or doing something, or designing something, developing something. But we should consider all 7 of them. And I could probably talk for about an hour on the guiding principles. I won't at this stage. These are the 7 that you would be required to understand. So, well, what does it mean to start where you are? What does it mean to focus on value? So, can you see where focusing on value would be applied, or most applied? So, questions around that sort of that level regarding the principles. We've also got 4 dimensions of service management, and for anyone who's done ITIL version 3, you probably recognise these are the 4 P's of service design, and those 4 dimensions are, in no particular order, organisations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. The 4 P's of service design were people, process, products, and partners. So the partners and process there, the people are there. The products really is the technology and the information. So they've been expanded slightly, and that there were considerations we'd take into account within service design. In ITIL 4, what we're saying is these 4 dimensions are applicable across everything we do within service management. And they're also constrained to some extent by various factors. So it's what we call PESTLE, which is political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environmental factors. But using these, or using a 4-dimensional approach, looking at service management and how we deliver value and how we deliver products and services, there are 4 considerations that we need to apply to make sure that we're delivering valuable products and services to our consumers. Okay. So at foundation level, just need to understand what the 4 dimensions are and how we would use them and how they help to deliver value. Another concept we've got at ITIL Foundation is the Service Value System, or the SVS. Looks like, according to that photograph, someone's having a bad day with this cabling. But within the ITIL Foundation course, what we're looking at here really is understanding the ITIL value system, understanding what its purpose is, and it's about co-creation of value with the stakeholders and the various stakeholders to deliver products and services which are of value to our consumer. It could be customers or users or sponsors. And the service value system starts with opportunity and demand. So is the demand for a new service? Is there an opportunity to develop an innovative service that nobody else is delivering to maybe external consumers or to internal consumers? So opportunity demands and demands always the start. The endpoint's obviously we deliver value, or we co-create value with our customers, stakeholders, and we do that by using our service value chain, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. But what we've got surrounding the service value chain are things like governance, which governance gives us the control and direction we should be heading in. We've got the guiding principles that we've already spoken about, those 7 guiding principles. We've got continual improvement, which is basically the same as we've seen in ITIL version 3. So anything we do should be subject to continual improvement. And we've also got practices. And the practices encompass processes. So for anyone who's looked at ITIL version 3 in the past, you'll remember that the 26 processes. Anyone who goes back to version 2, there were 10 processes. There's now 34 practices. And again, we'll look at those in a bit more detail a little bit later. Okay, so a little bit of detail around the service value system. In terms of those guiding principles, we can't apply all of them all of the time, but they are considerations, and they can actually, if we can focus on them, it will make sure that we are delivering value, we are starting where we are working holistically. Okay, and the governance is the control and direction. The governance is what we would have discussed in service strategy within ITIL version 3. The value chain, we'll look at in a little bit more detail in a minute. Practices, bit more than process. A practice, a bit like a dental practice, legal practice, medical practice. It's not just about process, it's about people and technology and suppliers. So we manage a dental practice. We don't just follow a set of processes. Okay. And obviously continual improvement. In ITIL version 3, we used to talk about CSI, continual service improvement, but it's not just about the service. It's more holistic. It's about looking at how we improve everything. So it's not maximum level of improvement at any cost. Obviously, there needs to be a return on investment or value on investment. Okay. So we talk about continual improvement now as opposed to continual service improvement. And we'll touch on the continual improvement model. For those from version 3, the ITIL continual improvement model was what we used to call the CSI approach. Okay. So let's have a look at a bit more detail, the value chain. What does it comprise of? And again, we've got demand and value, the start and end. But within the value chain, we can break it down to a number of elements. And those elements cover things like engagement. So how do we engage with our consumers, our customers, our users, the various stakeholders? We've got how we obtain and build new services or building additional features onto existing services, how we design and transition into the live environment, and then the live environment, how do we deliver and support our services, our products and services. And around the outside, we've got planning, which could be project planning. It could be planning how we onboard a new user. In fact, it could be any form of planning. And at the bottom, we've got improvement. And again, it's about any form of improvement. Okay, and we've got a feedback loop from value back to demand. Okay, in terms of making sure we are delivering value. And where we're not, we can then alter what we're doing to provide that value. Okay, and within this value chain, we have what we call value streams. And the next slide just demonstrates a value stream within the value chain. And we'll have multiple value streams within the value chain. Again, all starting from demand. First point should be engagement. And depending what the value stream's about, in this case, this example's for a new service. Okay, so we can just take a quick walk through the steps. Engagement, it's about understanding and documenting the service requirements. So it's a bit of business analysis there. Step 2, bit of planning, whether we're going to invest money in this new service or this new functionality. Obviously decided we are. Step 3, design and architect the new service. Step 4, build, configure or buy the various components for the new service. Step 5, we go back into design and transition again in terms of deploying the service components. And then step 6, we're releasing the service to the customers and users, and hopefully they're achieving some level of value from that then. Okay, so you can see what might have been a service lifecycle there in version 3, but we're just not going through it in one direction. We can skip backwards and forwards within that, which we used to be able to do in version 3. Just people didn't take it that way. People always thought that the life cycle was strategy, design, transition, operation. Okay, so we could have multiple value streams. And for anyone who thinks value stream mapping is something totally new, we have a little mini course we have as a self-paced e-learning, 90 minutes I think it is, and it's on our website. What we've actually applied here as well to this, to the value stream for a new service, is 2 of the guiding principles which are most applicable. One is focus on value for this new service, and the other one is think and work holistically. And those 2, I'm not saying the other 5 aren't applicable, but these 2 are most applicable to the delivery of a new service. Okay, so as well as those concepts we've just looked at, I mentioned that we have new practices, this new concept of a practice, and all the practices are, as I said, it's the organizational resources, and those resources could be process, people, technology, and each practice can support a number of value chain activities. And this was the case with version 3. So we had things like knowledge management, and because knowledge management was documented in the service transition book, people thought knowledge management was a service transition process. No, it ran across the life cycle, and it's equally applicable in ITIL 4. Things like financial management, change management, knowledge management, they all ran across all of the whole life cycle. So what we see with the practices, they may be applicable in certain elements. So in terms of problem management typically we'd see as an operational process, but as a practice, it can take part in the design and transitioning of new services as well, in terms of providing advice and guidance, because probably similar problems have appeared before. We're trying to prevent them, we're trying to work proactively as a problem manager. So a lot of the practices work across the whole of the value chain and the various value streams that we have. And each practice includes the various resources as well from the 4 dimensions. So each practice would have an element of the organization of people, our value streams and processes, our partners and suppliers, our technology and information. And if you look at any of the practice documents, and each one of them is about 50 pages long, and I'll explain later how you gain access to them. They do follow the 4 dimensions approach in terms of documentation. And here are all of the practices. As I said, 34. We've got 13 general management practices, and these include knowledge management, portfolio management, project management. So there's lots of new processes and practices within ITIL 4. But we talk about design and transition within ITIL 3. Project management typically was what was managing that transition, that design and that transition. But in ITIL version 3, we didn't really talk about it. We've got very specific service management practices, and there's 17 of those. And what you might have recognized from version 3 as functions around things like technology and application management functions, they're now technical management practices. One of the functions we had in ITIL version 3, which appears to have disappeared, is actually the service desk, and the service desk is now a practice within the service management practices. Okay, so in terms of the ITIL Foundation course, we don't talk about all 34 within the course. I think we covered 19 of them, some in more detail than others. So at sort of a high level, we're asked to recall the purpose of the following ITIL practices. So information security, relationship management, supplier management, IT asset management, which is a new one, but a very important one. Monitoring and event management, release management, configuration management, and deployment management. So we're just looking at the purpose, foundation level, what's the purpose of these practices? And we're also asked to be able to recall various definitions. And the ones which are documented in the syllabus are: what is an IT asset? What is an event? What is a configuration item? So the questions around that sort of level, of foundation level, may be differentiating between what an IT asset is and what a configuration item is. Okay. And practices in detail, we've got a number of them, which we need to go into more detail. So we're going down really to the sort of activity level. We're looking at the roles and responsibilities. We're looking at the metrics. And these are around things like continual improvement practice, including the continual improvement model, which used to be the CSI approach, version 3. We're looking at the change enablement practice. Change enablement was what we would have called change management. And then we've got incident problem service request management, which was request fulfillment in version 3, the service desk practice, and service level management practice. So we're going into a bit more detail in these within the foundation course. So we're going down to sort of activity level, looking at roles and responsibilities, things like that. And typically these would be the ones we see at Bloom's level 2. So we're wanting an understanding, not just recall. So a bit more detail in types of maybe down to activity level questions. And again, for these practice areas, we'd be looking at for people to be able to recall the definitions and the following ITIL terms in terms of things like what's a change, what's a problem, what's an incident, what's a known error. Fairly simple stuff. So if you've done ITIL v3, ITIL 4 is no problem, because these definitions really haven't changed. Although problem has sort of leapt back to ITIL version 1, in that we had problem control and error control, and in ITIL v3 the error control disappeared and it's now back in ITIL 4. So there are subtle changes. training course and you take the exam and pass the exam, what you would get for your efforts, apart from a pat on the back and your qualification, Axelos are giving away 12 months free access to My ITIL. And what My ITIL contains is access to the practice guides for those 34 practices. So there's about 1,000 pages worth of information. So about 50 pages per practice, or 45 to 50 pages per practice, and all 34 practices. And they are being kept up to date. So where people are spotting the odd mistake or gap or inconsistency, then they're being corrected. So these practice guides will be updated on a regular basis, and they won't ever be printed. They'll be printed maybe in a shortened form in some of the ITIL 4 books, but you won't see them printed in their entirety. The only way to access these practice guides will be through the My ITIL website, which I believe after your first 12 months free access is £50 a year. There's also lots of other goodies in there. There's white papers, there's free materials, lots of other good stuff. Okay, so I suspect some of you may have already done foundation, in which case I've been preaching to the converted. Beyond foundation, and maybe prior to taking foundation, you may think, well, what would I do after the foundation? We're just going to touch on some of those areas. So just looking back at that qualification scheme again, and I'll just run through it on separate slides. The ITIL Master, which is the top level, the capstone. I've asked Axelos what do people have to do to get to ITIL Master in ITIL 4, and at the moment I've got no idea because they've still not come back to me, and I've been asking for about 12 months. The ITIL V3 Master is still there, and that probably may just be transferable. What Axelos have actually said is that you pass the MP, Managing Professional, and the Strategic Leader, you will be well on the way to your road to achieving ITIL Master. So whether there's going to be a further exam or whether you will just be awarded the ITIL Master certification after passing the MP and the SL, I don't know. But as soon as I know, I'll let everybody else know. So the Managing Professional, it's not a course. You gain the accreditation either by passing the 4 exams, the CDS, DPI, High Velocity IT, Drive Stakeholder Value, or you're either an ITIL V3 expert and you could do the transition over to Managing Professional, or if you've gained 17 credits or 15 credits plus a foundation, then you can actually take the Managing Professional transition exam as well. And at this point, I'll just point out that the Managing Professional transition exam is the questions within it are still based on Bloom's level 1 and 2. So, and Bloom's the Bloom taxonomy has 7 levels. So they're wanting people to pass the Managing Professional transition exam, and up till last week we had 100% success rate, and someone let us down. I won't name and shame him, but literally failed by 1 point. So but he's passed on a reset. Okay. Strategic Leader, similar to the Managing Professional, but there's just 2 courses. If you're already a Managing Professional, either through the transition or taking the 4 other courses, then you just need to do the digital and IT strategy course to become a Strategic Leader, because the DPI, the Direct Plan and Improve module, is in both Managing Professional and Strategic Leader. Dropping down from the certification levels down to the course levels, at this what we'd probably call the intermediate level. We have CDS, so Create, Deliver and Support. And this course covers really that centre portion of the value chain. So the obtain and build, design and transition, deliver and support. And in V3 terms, it would be the design, transition and operation elements. There's an element of planning, obviously an element of improvement, but that's the main focus. It's looking at value chain, the value streams. In fact, the course just focuses on 2 value streams in terms of a new, supporting an existing service and creating a new service. And you also cover the relevant practices, and I've just noticed the typo because I'm still writing processes instead of practices, so it covers the relevant practices as well within those value streams. The drive stakeholder value, this is a sort of a business relationship management at a strategic level, service level management at a tactical level, and also in terms of the relationship with the users at an operational level. So the focus of this course really is focusing on relationships, looking at the customer journey all the way from demand through engagement. And obviously CDS covers the middle part, and value. What do our consumers consider value to be? So it's all of the underpinning processes and methodologies that allow us to engage, understand demand first of all, engage with our consumer, whether they're internal or external to the organisation, and how we deliver value. And we do that through something called the customer journey. And that customer journey is broken down into a number of steps, and we look at the approach at each step as we go through it from demand through to delivering value. High velocity IT, basically we cover everything. It's like ITIL on steroids in terms of how do we do things better, quicker, faster. So it looks at how we can apply agile, lean, DevOps thinking to the complete value chain, how we deliver the service to our services and products to our customers and consumers. It looks at things like design thinking. It looks at emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if you're thinking of going down maybe a DevOps route, or if you're working in an organization which is bimodal, then high velocity IT is probably one of the courses you should consider. DPI, direct plan and improve. Focus here for this course is planning and improvement, but also governance, which comes from our SVS, our service value system. So key elements, governance, planning, all elements of planning, not just project planning, and how do we apply continual improvement across the value chain. Okay, and this is a course that's in both the managing professional and the strategic leader streams. Okay, and this is the last one which has come out, which is currently in development. Will be available, I think, from October this year. And this course really is focusing on the how we deliver a digital organization. So how do we take an existing organization and make it fit for purpose in the 21st century, in the fourth industrial revolution? So it looks at the overall digital strategy as a journey, and looking at what we need to put in place in terms of our strategic capabilities to actually move that journey forward and actually deliver a digital organization. Slightly different, the exam for this course also covers open book assignments as well as a closed book exam. So it's slightly different to all of the others. I think that's one of the reasons why one of the last ones to come out. The prerequisite for this course also is that you have 3 years management experience. So it's looking for people with that sort of extra level of experience in service management. Okay, so that is, with 1 minute to spare, the end of the presentation. And really I'm opening it up to Q&As. We have a chat function on Microsoft Teams, and hopefully you've been able to log some questions in chat, and we will go through it. So just bear with me while I break into the chat. Right, okay. We don't appear to have anything in chat that I can see. Either that or I've got a technical difficulty.
Steve, it's Bob.
Hi, Bob.
I'm answering questions in chat for you.
So, right, Bob.
I've been doing them as I've been going, so that's maybe why you can't see anything there.
Right, okay. That probably explains it. I just thought my technology had let me down again. Right. Is there anything that needs my expertise?
I think Bob's busy typing, Steve.
Right, I think he must be. Cheers, Carol.
Sorry, Steve, if you were talking to me, I do apologise. I was just looking at some more questions that are popping up here.
Right.
So I was just going to, there's one on here I need to answer, so I'll just get on and do this.
Right.
Okay.
Is this something you can share in terms of reading out the questions, Bob? And the answers?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we've got one here about, do you get any of the physical books supplied with the online courses? So of course, with that, as far as I'm aware, because obviously online is fairly new to us, but we have been supplying the books as far as this, Steve, unless you're going to correct me otherwise. But
no, we have been supplying the books.
Yeah, we have been supplying the books with it. The great thing about the books, for those of you who may be new to this arena, starting probably with ITIL practitioner, the way the books are written is much, much better. They're much easier to read and to go through. So, and generally, the way they're presented, for example, there's always a storyline through them about a fictitious company, and it builds up and builds up as you go through the book. It is easy to follow. There's lots of good guidance in the back. For example, Steve's been mentioning about value streams. Value streams, by the way, come from the culmination of value chain activities and practices. And I use a little acronym when I teach, and I just say to people, or a little sum, I just say to people, think of value chain activities plus practices equals value streams. Each value stream being a series of steps that we undertake in the creation of value. That's the way I remember these things.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. The books are an awful lot easier to read. At foundation level, we will, for the virtual courses, send out the official TSO handbook for ITIL Foundation.
Yeah, we've got another one here. Sorry, Steve, from Fonso. So I've only got V2 Foundation. Been working within V3, V4 environments for over 8 years. Can I just go on to V4? Yeah, you can just start off so on the foundation. You don't have to do anything else before that. You can just come straight into the foundation.
Steve, can you hear me?
Whoa, yes.
Debbie, can you hear me? There's a few questions about when the presentation will be available to send or be online.
Right, everybody should have it by tomorrow morning. I just need to download it after this presentation concludes, So I will get it sent out this afternoon, or this evening at the latest. So everybody should have it tomorrow. And I believe that we're looking to send something out to people with the link to the recording to offer people a discount on the ITIL Foundation training. So if you are considering ITIL Foundation training, then there'll be a discount code or voucher or percentage, which the account managers will be happy to consider. Okay.
We've got an interesting one here. I just want to make sure I'm getting it right before I zap it out to everyone. But
right.
Do you get a certification tie pin badge on qualifications, which reminds me of the old badge we used to get for ITIL. Now, as far as I know, they are no more, but you can get these digital badges to add to your CV after passing. You
can, yeah. There is a digital badge. Yeah, unfortunately, the ones on your lapel don't exist anymore. I used to have a red badge, green badge, and about 10 blue badges. So...
See, they're still looking at me from the side here. I can still see them.
Right. Yeah, they were nice. Version 3, unfortunately, they stopped doing them. Although one kind customer actually bought me I think it was a badge you could buy online, and it said, "I am an ITIL guru." So I wore that with pride for many years.
Oh dear. Anybody who's been through V2 managers deserve to wear that.
True. Right. Are there any other Q&As there, Bob?
No, I've just about answered them all at the moment, unless any more pop up. But yeah.
What we'll do is we'll make them available to everybody in a FAQ type document. And I believe I don't know anyone on this session if you're booked on next week, but we have, I believe it's CDS on the Thursday, and for anyone who's interested, the MPT, the Managing Professional Transition, one on the Friday. So yeah, if anybody's booked in for those, I'll be looking forward to speaking to you next week. And hopefully everybody stayed connected and heard what was going on during the session. But if not, we've got the recording, assuming the recording has actually worked. So having worked in IT for 40 years, I'm a little bit cynical around some of its capabilities at times. Right. Okay. So I think if there's nothing else there, Bob, in the chat.
No, I've just there was some good feedback here, so good news. So looks like most people enjoyed it. So yeah, it's there's nothing else to cover here, Steve. Right.
Okay. Well, I'll call this session to a close. That sounded like a chairman as opposed to a presenter, but we'll call it a day for now. And I wish everybody a good afternoon, a good evening, and maybe speak to you next week on the other sessions. Okay.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Steve, do you want to stay there a second?
Yeah. I can't see who's still on, if anybody.
Okay. Yeah. All right. No. Okay. Don't worry. I'll talk to you by mail or something. That's okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. Cheers, Steve.
Okay. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.